Welcome everybody, it's Turbo Taormino here, and today's a great day because I'm sitting here with Buck the Megabuck, owner of Retro Game Treasure. Do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, Buck?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm Buck Stein. I'm the owner of Retro Game Treasure, and we bring retro games to you through a monthly subscription service.
Yeah, and I've had some good luck with my boxes. I know it's randomized,
Yeah, sure.
but I've had some good luck, especially with certain games that I actually didn't know existed. Like, one of my favorites that I've gotten so far is Trog.
Oh, yeah.
Trog for the NES. I was like, okay, well, it's a dinosaur game. I threw it in, and I started messing with it because I recorded at the end of these videos. I record the gaming footage, and I lost like a half hour to an hour of time, and I was like, oh my goodness, I've been playing this game forever, and I didn't even realize it was a lot of fun. So that's one thing I really love about your service is, yeah, we love to get Zelda and Mario, but there are so many other great games out there that we don't even know existed.
Yeah.
And we're just missing out on just some great fun times.
Yeah, and it all depended on what your tastes were, too. Like, I know you have pretty particular tastes as far as liking some of the cartoon games and some of those kinds of ones with those styles. And you fall into that pit trap of when we were 15, 12, 9 years old, oh, the art looks kind of lousy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you based your whole opinion on that game based on that cover, and we're all guilty of it.
Yeah.
It's true. There's some diamonds in the rough for sure.
Yeah, definitely. So, in my last unboxing, I asked a bunch of you guys who are watching the video if you wanted to ask any questions to Buck the Megabuck, to submit them in the comments. I have a couple questions of my own, as well as a couple that were submitted, so if you don't mind, I'll ask you some before we unbox.
Fire away.
Because I want to rip into that box so bad. Okay.
Christmas right here.
Yes, I know.
Santa
It's
Claus.
so far. From Pop Culture Junkie, I know he has had your subscription service for quite some time, so go and check his stuff out. He asked a couple different questions here.
Sure.
Where do you see the subscription service in 3 years?
I mean, it continues to grow at exponential rate. I mean, we just celebrated our 1 year anniversary of being in business, and we're super excited about that.
That's awesome.
It's grown so much, and we've learned so much as we're doing it, and we've gotten so many new subscribers. You know, as you just saw where we added PlayStation 1, Dreamcast, and Sega CD this month.
Awesome.
As consoles get older, we'll add more to our repertoire, too. So certainly in the next 3 or so years, I mean, there will be some of those consoles coming down the pipeline for sure as, you know, 7th generation gets a little bit older as well, too. I mean, there'll be certainly more growth in there, too. We love some of the partnerships we've already started doing. Mm-hmm. You saw the one with Hyperkin, too. Which is a blast. They're awesome guys, and John and those guys over there, and Terrence, they're just really cool guys that have helped us out, and this month has got some cool treat in there from them, too. And I love growing that partnership aspect of it, too, in the community. You know, I love newer indie games, too, that are in the vein of the old games. Don Thacker from, if you've heard of Star Mazer, it was a really successful Kickstarter last year. Mm-hmm. They're making an old LucasArts-style point-and-click.
Ooh, I love those.
And then they made a spin-off game called Star Mazer DSP that's basically a sci-fi UN squadron.
Oh, wow.
It's amazing. So he reached out to us. He's actually a subscriber.
Oh, wow.
He's the guy that's ahead of it. It's his creative baby. And we're just so excited to talk to him, too. So maybe some upcoming cool stuff from the Star Mazer guys, too.
And that's one thing that I've noticed about getting into this whole YouTube thing. It's all about the networking.
Yeah.
It's
community,
all about networking. Yeah. Of course, we're all a community of gamers. So the next question Pop Culture Junkie asked is... this is kind of touching on what you just recently added, because he actually asked this question before you added the PS1, the Dreamcast, and the Sega Saturn. But are there other systems that you wanted to include in the group of games that you're providing for your service that have not yet been provided?
I would have said Sega CD if you'd asked me that question a month ago. Because when we polled our subscribers, PlayStation 1, hands down.
Yeah.
But Dreamcast was not a distant second. Mm-hmm. Sega CD was a pretty distant third. I have a soft spot for the Sega CD. I had the version 2 growing up, and I loved it. And so that was probably one of my favorites. I'm glad made it in there. It all came down to, can we get the supply from wholesalers and such on a regular basis? I really would have loved still, and to be honest, still working on it, I would love to have like Atari 2600 games go back really an extra step.
Yeah.
And you know what the biggest logistical issue is? Testing. They're there's some great cool games in there, but they were not manufactured as well as like say the Nintendo games and Forward were, and the failure rate's a little higher.
They're not holding up as well.
They're not. It would call it because they're a little bit older because in the NES games or whatnot, but it was in that early bin a year and a half ago when I had this idea to go back that far, and they did not run the gamut of the testing. So maybe one day soon we get a reliable supply.
And then one last one from Pop Culture Junkie. Do you see yourself as Retro Game Treasure attending any comic or any game expos, promoting your company, and then also, if so, if you see yourself doing that, selling mystery boxes for a flat rate to say, hey, this is kind of what we have to offer. We have a mountain of boxes here. They're all randomized. Go in and buy one and see what you get. Do you plan on doing something like that, or have you thought of something like that?
We have definitely thought of it. I would love to personally, just because I've been going to like say MegaCon since like 1999. I mean,
wow.
I'm like nerd when nerds were not so cool.
Back when it was an insult.
Yeah, pretty much. Now it's like, all right, acceptance.
Yeah.
So I would love to just to go to some, especially some of the local ones as well, to promote the business as well. And that's kind of the flip-flop for us. We're not entirely sure if we would just go to promote the business or if we would sell some of the treasure chests. Because as you know, our treasure chests are tailored to our users.
That's right.
And so if we were selling them at the cons, it would be exactly that. Or maybe it would be a less broad of a spectrum, like it would only have like NES and Genesis, like maybe the Retron kind of trio, so to speak, in it as well too. So we talked about it, and we thought it would be a lot of fun. There's a lot of cost involved in those things too, so it's kind of we would like to be a fun time,
I guess it depends on the interest of the subscribers.
Yeah.
Now a couple of my questions, less from the company aspect of Retro Game Treasure. You, Buck the Megabuck, what is your favorite overall console of all time? This includes what you sell or produce and what you don't. So what's your favorite system?
It's a tough question.
That's including handheld Game Boys.
Everybody always asks us. I mean, there's a lot of consoles that I like from. I mean, I owned an Atari Lynx when I was a kid. Huh. Before I had a Game Boy. So I love that console. I loved my Sega CD. I have a TurboGrafx that I really enjoy too. But every time it really boils down to I've got an NES in this hand and I've got a Super Nintendo in this hand. And, so many great games that I love for the NES. But like the gemmest of the gems on the Super Nintendo.
I agree 100%.
I mean,
for myself, it's the Super Nintendo. That's even though I had an NES, and with the trackpad and everything, the Super Nintendo was where I hit my stride. And I had a Game Boy and everything else too. But Super Nintendo for me, it just hit it, and that's what just turned me on.
First time I played Super Mario World, it was like Mario 3 was cool, but look at this game.
That was graphically just amazing.
Yeah, the whole console. I mean, everything went. Well, I had a cousin that lived in Nevada that brought it over before I owned it. And he's like 8 or 10 years older than me, and he had Link to the Past. And he was like, "Look how when he walks from the tiles to the puddle, how the sound effect changes to the in the water." I'm like, oh, "That's so cool!" The attention to like 10-year-old me is like the attention to detail.
So, what are your top favorite? Well, can you even gauge your top 3 favorite games? Or maybe instrumental, or even most recent favorite. I know it's such a tough question to ask a gamer because it all depends on the point in time you're playing those games.
Right. I was going to say, it's more like, what's my favorite Nintendo game? Or top couple 3 Nintendo games. What's my favorite Super Nintendo?
So then let's go Super Nintendo then. Let's Super Nintendo games.
Super Nintendo, hands down, one of my favorite RPGs is Final Fantasy IV. I mean, like most gamers that like RPGs, we can all admit that Final Fantasy VI is probably the best in the series. But 4 is all, the guy, Johnny and Deuce, the guys from the Happy Hour, Johnny and I nerded out a little bit over that because 4 is both of our favorites for that as well, too. But there's so many other really great games, like Donkey Kong Country. I love the first Donkey Kong Country. I just love that game. Probably has something to do with what a great marketing machine Nintendo is, because I remember getting the VHS from Toys R Us in the mail. And it was like, look at those graphics, and then they teased Killer Instinct at the end. It was like, oh, it's over.
I got a story with that. I didn't want to say it on here because it's not super long, but for the PlayStation 1, I'm a big Final Fantasy 6 fan. I played Final Fantasy 3 when it was 3 off the Super Nintendo.
Before we all knew.
Yeah. It was so much fun. I loved it. Then just randomly one day, I got a VHS in the mail addressed to me, and I'm like, I forget when they were sending these out. I must have been like 12
10,
or 13
12,
or
right?
whatever. And it had the trailer of Final Fantasy VII on it.
Nice.
And just that, I can't even tell you how excited I was for that game. Like making sure I went down to Funko Land back when Funko Land still existed.
That's where I bought my PlayStation 1 from.
Yeah.
Over the phone from Funko Land.
Wow.
And I bought Tekken because that had come out. We had rented it from Blockbuster a couple times, and my mom knew I liked horror movies even as a kid. So the guy was like, "There's this game, Resident Evil, and if you like scary stuff, when the dogs jump out of the window, don't tell him, it'll surprise him." And I probably wet my pants like a half a dozen. Mom, I need a memory card.
Oh man.
But that's the hardest thing. You go back to like the NES for instance too, and I really love off the wall titles like Monster Party. That I had that as a kid, and it was just absolutely one of my favorites because it was so cool and different, and for a platformer, it had so much flavor and flair to it. But if you've ever played like Golgo 13 and the Mayfat Conspiracy, if you're into like anime stuff at all, I mean those are just wicked neat games. And so every console for me it's tough because there's so many different ones that hit the spot, so to speak. PlayStation, it's like a whole other universe because the catalog was humongous. It was 3 times the Super Nintendo's catalog. So.
Let's see what else I got here. Okay, so what I used to see, I saw some videos on your YouTube of you guys testing games and doing live stream for testing.
Yeah.
It seems like you had your own room with your own video game collection. Is something that I wish I can get one day. But to lead up to this question, what in your head said, okay, I want to go ahead and start this kind of company? What went through your mind and said, you know what? I wish this existed, I'm going to do it.
That's pretty much how it came about, too.
Okay.
And those early videos were us playtesting at the beginning when you only have, 100 subscribers, and you can do it with your buddies in a room, and we'd make a Sunday night of drinking and playing games out of it, which we didn't get to as many games as we should. But, it was about probably 20 months or so ago, and I had started really getting into the subscription services too. I had a buddy that had Loot Crate. I checked out Nerd Block Junior for the kids and stuff like that, Japan Crate, all these fun crates.
Yeah.
And I'm looking and I'm like, there's not one for video games. And while I was researching it, one in the UK popped up, which is now since defunct.
Yes.
And it was like, okay, I'm not crazy. This is an idea at least. But I'm a businessman too, I have a professional career before even Retro Game Treasure, and so I did my due diligence. I spent 6 months, reaching out and finding warehouses to buy product from and doing the math to make sure that it would work and that I could charge a reasonable price for it, and the logistics of shipping and things that I don't do in my everyday job either. To do all those things, that was a lot of learning. I gave myself a good 6-7 months before I felt like, okay, I feel like I brought this all together and it's ready, and I still feel like it's a good idea after all of that. I think people will really like this because it's a niche that I would subscribe to this if I wasn't thinking of this and doing this idea. I would really get a kick out of this. I mean, at the time, I had 200 NES games in my personal collection. And so, not to mention PlayStation 1 and everything else, I own every Squaresoft game for the PS1 down to Einhander and Tobal number 1. And so to me, it was like, as a collector, this is like a cool thing. But it was important to me that people could put in the games that they owned so they weren't just getting blind and hoping. There's tons of games out there, so the chance of getting duplicates anyway are kind of slim.
Yep.
But then when you start to ask people their personal preferences, I think that's where our service kind of shines, because we're not just giving you random games, and I hope you really like baseball for the NES, because if you don't, oh well, But, if you're not into shooters, and I have people all the time that are like, I don't like mature games, I've never been into them. That's why there's a checkbox for it, And so tailoring it more to the customer, I think, keeps our people a lot more happy, too, that they're getting games. Like you said, I never would have even thought of Trog, and I played it, and I'm like, this is a blast. It was right in the vein of that stuff that I like, right on the money.
I think it's amazing that you have that checklist that you can just, all right, I like this, I don't like this type of game, and I haven't been upset with one game since.
That's what we're shooting for.
Yeah, right.
At the beginning, it was just my brain just going, okay, here's the games they have, and we had to have a survey system with a PDF, and it was archaic, but it was like at the beginning we didn't know much better, and now we have programs and algorithms and stuff set up to make it all kind of work and think, because I know most of these games, but keeping track of those and listings and values and rarity and all that stuff is not Not so easy.
Well, I think you guys are doing a great job, and I
Thanks,
know there's a
Turbo.
lot of subscribers out there that just love your service.
Yeah.
One final question before I just rip into it. I'm going crazy right now.
There's some good stuff in here.
Oh, yes, I know. There's some good stuff in there. Because you mentioned your collection.
Yeah.
Is there something from your own personal collection that you do not own, whether it be a system or a handheld or a particular game that you don't have that you wish you had?
I'm a hardware guy.
Uh-huh.
I really like the different consoles and whatnot. So up until about 3 months ago, I would have told you which I picked one up, a Sega CD version 1.
Oh, okay.
I've owned a version 2, like literally since the version 2 came out. Version 2 was the one with the more PlayStation style open and closed flap, and the version 1 was the one on the bottom that had the tray come out of it. And when I was in middle school, our middle school here in town had a gaming club after school. So one day a week, I went to this gaming club, and we got to play on the Macs and play Shuffle Puck and Cannon Fodder and stuff, and play on the Sega CD and play like Sonic CD and Streets of Rage and that kind of stuff. And they had a Sega CD version 1, which I just absolutely loved, and I never ever had one, and I finally pulled the trigger for myself and bought one to add it to that. And I love the hardware stuff, so
I don't blame you.
I just love it. Even the PS1 Mini, I didn't own one till last year. I always owned the bigger, gray box, and I bought myself the PSX. They call it,
The one with
the PS1,
the one with the screen?
the PSONE one, the one you can add the screen onto.
I
not
see,
the screen,
okay.
but that too, same thing. I've always wanted that as far as the hardware goes too. I like that a lot as well too. I collect the sets sometimes, like everybody does. Like I said, I collected all of the Square Enix games for the PS1 and some of those too. I love like the Deception series and some of those. I like some of that horror, scary, macabre stuff, but I like a lot of different games. That's the thing with me. Even, you boil it down to like even sports games where some people are like, I don't know. It's like you throw in a triple play or a Blades of Steel, and I mean, there's a higher quality.
Yeah.
Tecmo Bowl, Super Tecmo Bowl,
Yes.
Those are a blast. It's almost been a thought to say maybe there should be 3 different categories for
Yes.
sports, like sports fun, sports,
Yeah,
and
right.
sports good.
Yeah, right.
Because we really try to send up some of the better ones too. We had a subscriber this month that really Bad News Baseball. He was like, I absolutely love that game. It's like, wow, thousands and thousands of NES games in stock, 1 copy of that game.
Wow.
Because it's just a more rare, sports title as it goes. And
Yeah.
SNK, I think, made that. So.
All right. I think I'm ready to open this up.
Yeah. This is cool for me. I get to like sit and watch and see the
Yeah.
reaction. I like that. That's fun.
All right. Let's go open this. Oh, it's got my name on the bottom. All right. Oh, man. All right. Just gotta...
I can help you too because I bet there's a couple in there that you're gonna be like, wow.
Man, okay. One thing at a time. Here's a few tips. And I was going to say this at the end of the video, but this makes sense. Just a little card. Make sure you post your stuff if you're a subscriber. Post your stuff online. It helps out Buck the Megabuck. It helps out Retro Game Treasure. So there's just a few tips to let you know, hey, this is kind of what we're all about. One little tiny card.
And we are giving away a Retron 5 this month, and if you share your treasure, you get an extra entry into the giveaway. So
Ooh, I might just do that, and then maybe I'll give it away.
nice.
All right, exclusive deal for Retro Game Treasure customers, 20% off the Retron 5, any color. You know what?
Sorry, I know that's a little late for you.
Yeah, it's a little late. But you know what? The gameplay, what I'll do is I unbox this, I show you guys the games, and then I put a little snippet of each game at the end of it, at the end of this video. And this is what I use. It's really good. It's really, really, really good. If you have any questions, if you're hesitant on possibly buying one yourself, I do have a video on my site. Go in and check it out. I'll put it somewhere in this video where you can click on. But check it out. I run it through its paces. Some people have complained it's a little too long, but I wanted to run it through its paces because people were on the fence about it, and I really honestly think it's a good
Between the HDMI output and the fact that save batteries on older games start to get iffy, that's the best. The funniest thing too is when we test, like, say 10 Dragon Warriors in a row, it doesn't know the difference between them, so it picks right back off where the next cartridge was.
All right, from my favorite
Nice.
console, Wing Commander.
Aw, dang.
And you know what? It looks good.
You ever played any of those Wing Commander games?
No, I have not.
You're gonna like that.
It looks great. The cartridge looks great. The label looks great, and you have to always remember you're not always going to get a great label or a great find or colors. So sometimes you're going to get some faded colors. And it's just natural. These games have existed. They're not being manufactured anymore, so it is what it is.
My favorite's when they come from like Tony's rental shop in Bumsville, Milwaukee, or something.
You know what?
I actually kind of like that.
Do you erase the phone numbers on there for like Mrs. Kennedy, and it's got like the phone number on there?
Usually, if we can try, yeah, if it's like a magic eraser.
Because I would love
or
to
something.
call them up and be like, "Hey, I got your game."
I'm trying to figure out the person that would put their phone number on the game, because you get it and be like, oh, hey, by the way, I have your game. Like, what they're not gonna call you? What's wrong? No.
If you want $100 for your game, here's a.
Come on, what are they?
Are these Pogs?
Yes.
Pogs and a
courtesy of Hyperkin. With a slammer from Hyperkin, a really nice slammer too.
You know what? It's nice and heavy, and it looks good.
And they have like pictures of like the Retron and other stuff on them, and like their mascot Taft and other things. And oh yeah, everybody got one of those in their subscription box this month.
Their Hippo. That's cool. You know what? I actually have some Pogs in one of my drawers in the bedroom.
That's a pretty killer slammer.
It is a nice slammer. It's nice and heavy.
They're so about retro. They're so funny. Like their glasses that they sent me. I love them.
Oh jeez,
that's so great.
Game Boy Advance, Danny Phantom. I watched a cartoon show a little bit.
Now the coolest thing about that is like you like the cartoon style games. I know that's a beat 'em up.
Yeah,
but it's a good beat 'em up.
I heard very good things about that game.
That was a game that I never played, and through testing learned about it too. And I was like, this is good. Like, where did this come from?
Yep.
Yeah.
And I had this game as a kid. Don't judge me. I am happy that I have it back in my possession. Powerpuff Girls, Bad Mojo Jojo. Don't judge me.
Which one? No, which did you own? Bad Mojo Jojo, or Battle Him, or Paint the Townsville Green?
They're separate games?
They made three sets.
I want to say it was this one.
And they made one with Blossom, one with Buttercup, and one with Bubbles on the cover of each one.
I want to say it was this one.
Bad Mojo Jojo. It's a neat little platformer shooter kind of.
Yeah, it's cool. Man, I'm excited to play this one.
It's because it's the style that you like. That's why it fits. It's like if you didn't like cartoon games, that wouldn't be in there because it 100% falls under cartoon.
And I totally regret selling all my video games when I was a kid. Oh yeah, I'm gonna get store credit. Oh man, that's why we're here, right?
Don't we all?
Sega Genesis, and you know what? I actually played this game as a kid. I never owned it.
That's the second one. You played that one?
I played this one. Nice. I had a friend growing up, and I won't drop his name because I haven't spoken to him in maybe 10, 20 years. But he had all the consoles, and at our babysitter's house every summer he'd bring all the consoles over, and that's where I got introduced to Final Fantasy 3 or 6 and the Super Nintendo. Taz and Escape from Mars. This came from Hippo's Video Games.
Nice.
So I'm going to look that place up and get some history about it.
I played the first one a lot. I owned the first Tasmania when I was a kid too, and I loved it. The controls were pretty good, but sometimes like a little unpredictable. Like sometimes you'd spin out of nowhere. But I didn't play the second one quite as much as the first.
I'm excited.
Difficult game.
Okay.
Oh snap!
Shadow Master.
Yeah. For
the PlayStation, and I'm glad I still have my PlayStation. Yeah. I didn't let go of that. I'm glad I have my wife who was smart enough to not sell her stuff. Half the games up here are hers.
Nice.
She never sold all her stuff. So I am very lucky to have a lot of these old consoles.
That's a fun one too. Shadow Master is like, did you ever play Descent? You play that? No. That was like the 3D flying version of Doom, basically.
Sure.
That's kind of like that. It's got kind of like that 3D like shooting effect, like the neat looking like mecha aliens and stuff, and it's fun. I think Psychosis made that. It's the guys that did like they ended up doing like some like Destruction Derby and Lemmings and some of the games on the PlayStation and stuff. They made some good stuff.
Yeah. Well, I'm really excited for this batch. Thank you so much. And any of you guys who are on the fence, check them out. RetroGameTreasure.com. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we close this out?
No, check it out. RetroGameTreasure.com. It's a custom-tailored monthly subscription service. We send video games right to your door. You keep the games, and they're all for the consoles that you own and the kinds of games that you like.
That's the best part. You get to keep them. This isn't a rent service. So
people get confused by that sometimes. They're like, so when do I send them back? I'm like, you don't. They're yours.
Yeah, that's what I love saying in every video. They are yours to keep. Don't send them back. Keep them. That's the best part. So, Buck, thank you so much.
Thanks,
I appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Stay tuned at the end of the video here. I'm going to have some gameplay of all the games that I just got. And again, thanks for watching, and tune in next time.
You